Accept as printed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
They are approved. Department heads and committees, we have Mr. Perry from our Board of Health. Mr. Perry.
I think, Mr. Chairman, if you want to wait till we get into
Selectmen?
therein,
Okay, sure.
That's okay.
Yep.
We're only going to be a few minutes.
We'll take Mr. Bousquet under department heads and committees.
Thank you very much. My name is Lou Bousquet, and I'm the current chair of the Taunton River Stewardship Council. And as you know, a couple of years ago, the Taunton River was nominated and received a wild and scenic river designation. So the council's been working on doing some things as far as branding and getting the name of the river out. One of the things that we have done recently and wanted to bring to your attention is we developed a river sign, and we wanted to come before you and ask permission to put these up in the town. We have a couple that are on the Forge River. I think the thoughts were putting perhaps down at King Philip Street near the Anchor Park that's down in there, because that's along the Forge River. And the other one perhaps around Johnson's Pond area, because that is one of the beginnings of the Forge. The other one is at Gardner Street. But those two, because of the traffic, they could be some nice locations. The other signs. Could we see that? Sure. Thank you. The other ones that were developed were just generic and are meant to be put up along the main stem of the river, and they're just without the location signs. These here are going to. We're going to work with the state and other towns and get these put up hopefully at crossings for the river, and maybe along at kiosks and things like that, like down in Somerset along the Taunton River, that type of thing. So I guess what I'd like to come before you tonight is to ask permission to work with Roger to get several of those signs installed around town and get that started, and if that met with your approval.
Sure.
I think that's an excellent idea. It's historically, it's very important to identify those locations. So I thank you, Lou, very much for what you're doing on this. We appreciate it.
Is that a motion, Mr. McKenna?
So moved, be granted.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. It's approved. Thank you, Lou.
Thank you.
No other department heads or committees, no appointments tonight, no public hearings, new business. The Tag Day Summit, is there anybody here for the Tag Days? Mr. Texera, Ms. Nickerson, no? Okay, we have a number of Tag Day requests, all with the town administrator's approval. What is the board's pleasure?
Move to accept.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those are approved. One other piece of new business, I have the report of the re-precincting committee, and that was a unanimous vote of myself, town clerk Sylvia, Mr. Buckner, and Superintendent Forbes, and we would make the recommendation for the board's adoption to locate all 4 precincts at the middle school effective immediately for future elections.
Okay, I'll move to accept that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That is approved. Thank you. Any other new business, Mr. McKinnon?
I don't know, you're going to give me a ride over when I park in the lot?
Yes, sir. I'll do shuttle service.
That's an amendment to the,
I'll do shuttle service. Mrs. Smith, anything?
No.
Okay. Old business, Mr. McKinnon.
Nothing.
Mrs. Smith. Town administrators report, Mr. Buckner.
Special town meeting just approved the acceptance of a provision of state law which authorizes the board to allow on-premise licensees, restaurants to sell alcoholic beverages as early as 10 a.m. on Sundays. I believe applications from license holders can begin immediately. Requires a hearing, but not newspaper notice or notice to abutters. And I think we have one already.
We've received a request from the Stone Forge to schedule a hearing. Mr. Buckner and I discussed it, and we had, is it January 24th?
Yes, 2 weeks.
At 7:10, if that's amenable to the board?
It is.
What's the board, is that a motion, Mrs. Smith?
It would be a motion, yes.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Again, tax bills went out after Christmas, and they're due February 1st. On the South School, Town Council's opinion was that the town meeting vote was needed to authorize the lease of the South School, and now that that has been done, I will get the process going. In fact, I've already got it going, and in fact, bids will be due Friday, January 27th, which meets the required timelines. Transfer station, we're selling transfer station stickers again at the Highway Department and Selectman's office for 2012, and that's during normal business hours. Cost is still $70 for the first and $10 for the second at the same address. Bag tags remain at $2 each, and the grace period runs until the end of January. Upcoming Sursage Monthly meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. in Easton. Martin Luther King Day is coming up on Monday, January 16th. The town offices will be closed. And we have a Veterans Memorial Committee, Wednesday, January 18th at 5 p.m. at the sewer facility. And one of the agenda items is to plan for a groundbreaking ceremony.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Buckner.
Selectmen's report, Mr. McKinnon.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, yesterday we all attended the meeting with Senator Mark Pacheco, and I think it would be proper to draw up a letter from Mr. Buckner thanking the senator for making that available. There were high-ranking officials. As I said, it was probably the highest-ranked officials coming to the town of Raynham at one time since the state officials came down on 495 and said, we were a nice country community, and there's really no need to connect Mansfield to Raynham, Bridgewater with what's called the missing link. Of course, City of Taunton has the largest industrial park in the Commonwealth of Mass, and Raynham's tax woes have been averted based on the fact that we have an industrial park. But I'm sure, except for that, the state knew what they were talking about. They usually come down, and they usually like to talk to us like country folk. And I appreciate it. And so I think as the host community, we were somewhat careful on speaking last night. I did make an issue of an April aerial spray. I did make note of the fact that the policy does not have to be amended because they have a policy in case of emergency, they will spray. That's their policy. Then the next question is, what's an emergency? So what they have to define now isn't should they spray, they have to define what's an emergency. And based on everything I heard last night, since 1938, there's been emergencies. But it didn't carry particularly well. I believe the name was John Arbeck, I think his name is. He seemed like a very nice young man. And but the problem with it was, he said April was the wrong time to do it. Well, I go back to where the lava season was to do it, and now they're claiming vegetation covers the lava, so therefore April's the wrong time to do it. Of course, the next question would be, and I'm not raising it, I didn't raise it at the meeting because we were a host community, I believe, and I was well aware, and that's why I've invited the Board of Health agent in this evening, Mr. Perry. I knew Mr. Perry, and it will be 13 community, 12 health agents this Thursday, our meeting with Mr. Arbeck, I believe. So we're already scheduled to do that, and my respectfully request of Mr. Perry, and therefore if other agents might also say that, would be that he has half answered the selectman's question in Raynham on that given day. The half answer was that April's not a good time. The full answer, if I may ask our agent to ask Mr. Arbeck, if April's a bad day, what's a good day? Would it be March, or April, or May, or June, or July? What is a good date? Because you can't just say, because April's a bad date, therefore the suggestion to spray is not valid, because you didn't address the fact, when is there an emergency? That was the question. The question was more than just spraying. The question was, please define emergency, and I would ask that he do that. Now, if you get involved in what's happened, it's almost embarrassing. The emergency in 10, I believe, was the loss of 1 or 2 lives. Is that an emergency? We had the loss in 12 of 1 life. Is that almost an emergency, but not quite an emergency? What in the world has the state been doing since I talked to Gordon Luciano just before, and he said the thing that came out was that they've known about this since 1938 and haven't done anything about it. When did they decide to explain what is an emergency? That would be my question. And if they're going to do it based on 2 dying in 10 and 1 dying in 11, and there was a lady that went back home, and I guess she managed to live, if that be what they're talking, It's almost embarrassing. But anyway, that, if you would, Mr. Perry, I would ask that. The other thing is on the recommendation of the restrictions of the time, if indeed there be a restriction of the time. We ended up in Raynham with one of the most conservative times and during this past season. And I said at the meeting, I'm not disrespecting the coaches, but they took their young people and bussed them down to a community that had a more liberal hour of restriction in regard to the eastern equine encephalitis. And we know they fly 6 miles, and I don't think those kids were 6 miles away from the Pine Swamp, but nonetheless, that's that. I did ask that there be a coordinated effort by the state, and the state told me that there was no legislation that other than said it will be a local community. Well, that's not wrong. That wasn't the question. The question was, the state is responsible for the quality of life and the health of citizens in Massachusetts. Do they have no input? No recommendation? What are they sitting there for in Boston if they have no recommendation? Now, if they're saying it still is up to the local community, well, if there's a health risk, are they, as the state officials, not jointly responsible for the health? If they're going to hide behind the fact that they do not send the hour regulation, at least they should communicate with the local communities and say there should be a restrictive time for youths to be playing athletic events in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And I would therefore respectfully request one of two things. Either Mr. Perry get together with, we've got 12 different health agents going in, and maybe attempt to coordinate that time between them so that we will have a coordinated effort in regard to the time. If we cannot arrive at a coordinated effort, and Mr. Perry, in his infinite wisdom, says, not going to happen, McKinnon, then my recommendation then would be to write a letter to the State Board of Health, Mr. Auerbach, and say, we think you should write a letter to the Commonwealth of Mass legislature and request to take over that authority. If you can't get together on something like the health and welfare of children, then it's time for you to step in and do something about it. I hate to say this, and I try to be nice. My wife says, you weren't nice. I said, I thought I was nice.
You were
I thought it was nice.
You were nice.
Yep. I'm just saying to them, did they come to listen, or did they come to tell us what they think is enough information for us to know? So they're taking care of it as best they can, and they can do nothing else. I had a feeling when I left there, they basically told me what I should have known anyway. McKinnon, it was in April. And when it comes down, it filters. And then a few hours later, they come up again. Didn't you know that? And didn't you know? Well, I thank them very much for their little lecture. It was very cute. But that isn't what I asked. So I'm going to, if with the permission of the board and with the permission of Mr. Perry, who knows this business better than I, that I would request that those two things be addressed with Mr. Auerbach and also with the other health agents. One is that there be a spraying, and what is the proper time for it? Because say, for example, in 10, they had lost 2 lives in April. Would they then say, but it's April, don't you know that it's covered with little, and it goes down, here, a little cute. He goes down a little bit like that, he did that. And that was cute. Did you see him do that?
Yes, I
He did
did.
that, he did
I
that,
saw him.
yeah.
Is that a motion, Mr. McKinnon?
Well, this is,
He's motioning.
Yeah.
so I will so motion that.
You know, it's funny that Mr. McKinnon expounds very eloquently on a lot of the things. I sat there last night, and I listened very carefully to everything they said, and a lot of it from a scientific perspective made sense.
We enjoy
You,
it.
you can't do this because we have to collect the mosquitoes. And once we collect the mosquitoes, we have to count them. And then after we count the mosquitoes, we have to determine by testing whether or not it is a carrier of whatever it is. And then maybe we can do something about it. But we can't do anything if the sky is cloudy, if it's raining, if it's, you know what? Science is wonderful. But since 1938, they haven't come up with a better scientific way of figuring out. My logic says, which is stupid, I know, but spray. Spray your main points, your Hockomock Swamp, your Dead Swamp, Pine Swamp, whatever. Spray those areas because you know that that's where the mosquitoes are starting. Spray it today. Okay.
And that's what Senator Pacheco said, by the way.
Yeah.
The hot points.
The hot points, spray them automatically. You don't wait for the mosquitoes to come out. Spray them automatically. Spray 'em, he said, every 6 weeks. A new brood will hatch. Spray it again in 6 weeks. Do it for 3 months continuously. No, yes, you're not going to get every single mosquito because at the larva stage is what he was saying to you, that you could not get in April. But you can after that. And if you do it, yes, you're not going to get every one, but you're sure going to get a heck of a lot of mosquitoes in that area. Then there's also the point of you can't really spray everywhere because there are no spray areas, of which it is land that the state owns. Thank you very much, Mr. State. We also have been told how many times there's 11 different areas. Well, where are these areas? Are these just little standing pools of water somewhere that we, if we knew as a community, could eliminate? And if we could eliminate these pools of water, would that not also, not eliminate completely, but reduce the risk? And I'm tired also of hearing it's the responsibility of people. They have to spray, they have to spray, they have to use, but we know that. Spraying, aerial spraying, ground spraying, it is a tool. That's all it is. Yes, people have to take their own responsibility. We all do. We all spray. I don't go out without spraying. I'm sure you don't, and you, Joe. And everybody in this room probably uses all defensive mechanisms of their own. But we're relying on them who are supposed to be knowledgeable, who are supposed to have all the facts. Now, what did the gentleman from Berkeley say?
Well, we may join collectively and spray ourselves, Errol. We may do this collectively and have aerial spray, because that's what Berkeley's
That's right.
speaking of.
Berkeley says he can, go ahead.
I was gonna ask that question. I mean,
Yep.
cities and towns prohibited from doing
We don't-
spraying?
Well, that was another question that was asked and not answered.
The senator asked that question, it wasn't answered.
We
It
don't-
was not
We
answered.
don't have the authority to do that by state statute. The governor's the only one who can declare
Right.
that as an eligible activity.
Oh, are you talking about in terms of aerial spraying?
Yes, aerial
Yes.
spraying.
How about just local spraying? 'Cause as you said, Ray, we know what the spots are.
Well,
Berkeley's I do.
Unfortunately,
Well,
with
in the
that,
middle of the pine swamp or the middle of
they
the
can't
Hockomock,
get there.
they can't.
The-
That's right.
Any type of spraying that's legal and within the parameters of the Board of Selectmen in Raynham, we've utilized in conjunction with Bristol Mosquito Control. Their budget and their authority and limitations are also set by the Commonwealth, and so they're greatly limited, and Bristol Mosquito Control has advocated aggressively and in conjunction with this board to expand their authority and expand their budget, which we've always fully supported. But as Mrs. Nickerson said, they're limited and extremely limited, so again, that limits this board as to what we can do.
But even if they just spray, as the senator said, the hot spots, and do it on a continual basis for 2 or 3 months, it's gonna kill a lot of mosquitoes. Not gonna completely eradicate it, we all know that, but it will bring it down. And find out where those 11 pools are. And if it's a small standing pool of water somewhere that can be eliminated, let's go to conservation and see if we can't eliminate them, if they're in with our community.
Do I have a second for the motion, Mrs. Smith?
You certainly do.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Perry, would you like to add anything? Sure.
Mr. Chairman, just to say that I'd be absolutely glad to do that, to bring that information forth to the Commissioner. I do think that this board does have its finger on the pulse of this problem, not just for the town of Raynham, but I think you are also speaking in terms that are representing again, our counterparts in the region. I don't want to speak for them, but to a lot of your points that you've brought up tonight and others in past meetings, you're not alone. At least I believe that you are not alone in the region, but you do seem to be in the forefront of expressing those concerns. So, well, I'm glad to do it, and I'm certainly sure if I don't do it, somehow it's going to happen with one of my counterparts as well. So.
And we're looking forward, Alan, to hearing your report on how the meeting went with the commissioner.
Okay, I'm glad to.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Perry, for coming.
Would anybody on this topic like to add anything else before I move on? No? Okay, thank you. Mrs. Smith, anything else? Oh, Mr. McKinnon, I'm sorry, anything else? Mrs. Smith?
You all done? I'm done.
Okay, perfect. Correspondence. We have from Serpent just notifying us about potential opportunities for e-permitting solutions. Mr. Buckner, if you'd like to coordinate that with Ms. Wally. From Town Council, Mark Antine, notifying us that a deed from Joyce Ann Tui, Doreen Marie Dower, and Bruce Richard Kruzek to the inhabitants of the town of Raynham for the 29 plus minus acres of land off Britain Street in Raynham has been recorded at the Registry of Deeds. From our planning director, Marilyn Wally, just notifying us and inviting us to the annual Community Pride Awards being held by the Raynham Economic Development Commission February 13, which is a Monday at 5 p.m. right here in the McKinnon Meeting Room. I had received an email over the weekend, and I wanted to make sure we include it into our correspondence. This is from Frank Giordano and to the Board of Selectmen. Words cannot express how grateful and proud I am, as well as my family, for the tremendous hard work and relentless dedication that the Raynham Police Department exhibited by catching the perpetrators involved in the home invasion that took place at my home on December 19. It was a very difficult task, not only because the people involved were from a city 45 minutes away, but the dedication that they showed and the hours that they put in, especially around the holidays, was tremendously commendable. I am forever in debt for the courage and hard work that they displayed, and I'm extremely proud and feel eternally safe as a longtime Raynham resident, Frank Giordano. And the board was notified today that the third and final suspect was apprehended by the police department. From the fire department, the monthly activity reports, 136 ambulance calls, 106 miscellaneous calls. That is correspondence. Community and citizen input. Mr. Tuxera.
I just have a question of clarification. Earlier in the meeting, you talked about, did I understand you correctly, that all the voting will be done at the middle school?
Yes.
Instead of the other?
Yep. No more senior center.
I just want to make, I thought that's what I got from it.
Oh, no more senior center?
No.
No, I thought the seniors,
precincts.
yeah, but I thought that was a given, that we would keep it there, because the last time we did this at the senior center, the elders more or less said, we can't get up to that pole area, and so I would think moving three, okay.
The superintendent and the clerk's office felt that trying this on an experimental basis would be most cost effective. In terms of notification would be the easiest. So, anything else, Mr. Tuxera? Okay.
I wasn't sure that I heard that right.
Mrs. Nickerson.
I didn't hear.
Mrs. Nickerson, anything? Thank you. Press time, Mark from the Gazette.
When is Mr. Perry's and the
Thursday.
rest of the health agents meeting?
Thursday.
And Mr. Arbach? Okay.
And that is, there are 13 communities. One of the communities represents 2, so there will be 12 boards of health agents visiting with Mr. Arbach in Boston.
I guess we heard from Marie and Mr. McKinnon about what they thought about the EEE meeting last night. I was wondering maybe if I could get your brief thoughts on what transpired.
Well, I had said when Dr. Diamaria had come back a few months ago that it was my preference if the state did not come back to Raynham unless they were telling us they were going to spray. And I guess I would just stand by those earlier remarks because I think, with due respect to them, everything they told us is what we already knew. And that has not changed my opinion on the necessity for active and aggressive aerial spraying, so, no problem. Any emergency business tonight?
No, sir.
What is the board's pleasure?
Move to adjourn, pay the bills, no business conducted after.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you all for coming.